Alma Film Festival, like I said, is a conversation, and it's a conversation that we want to start around the world, and over-indexing on the global South.
I think for me, I'm interested in actually meeting other Black and brown filmmakers, and sort of like comparing and sharing experiences, as sort of like especially in the countries that are similar to mine in terms of not having that much of a developed film industry.
Okay.
I'm curious to perhaps learn from them how they do their own thing in their country without much support.
What are we missing as humanity for not hearing about the evolution and the human journeys from more of the world?
Looking forward to being able to showcase one of our pieces called Origins. It's a proof of concept pilot for a story based in Jamaica, but it's a big time traveling adventure full of like magic and monsters and a bunch of characters who are very integral to our history and our mythology.
We want to position ourselves to be one of the key festivals in the world to understand and see what's happening in the global South.
Good day, good people. Welcome to Daily Border Crossings. You are in for a special treat. Tonight we're talking to guests who are a part of the Alma Film Festival. It's the first of its kind. It's taking place in the Dominican Republic, March 17th through the 22nd. It has a wonderful website. And one thing that I want to read from there is that the Alma Film Festival is a festival built in response to structural gaps in the global film ecosystem. It is a next generation festival, research-centered, audience-focused, and tech-driven, grounded in scholarship, inquiry, and cultural analysis. All right, so I'm going to pause there. I want to toss it to the festival founder, creator, person for whom this was once just an idea and now it's come to fruition, Anthony Page. So Anthony, I'm going to toss it to you. What is the Alma Festival?
The Alma Film Festival, like I said, is a conversation, and it's a conversation that we want to start around the world. And we intentionally didn't go with like the big political groups, because I've been involved in economic development for years, and sometimes politics slows things down. So we want to be politically neutral.
Okay.
We want to connect with the people on the ground who are actually doing the work and start building those conversations, because and as you can see with our artwork, you see all of these different men and women with all of these different colors, because as I was doing DNA research, they said most of us have between 5 and 15 different ethnicities represented in us.
Okay.
We are so much more. So what does it mean to truly be Black or white or Asian or whatever? I mean, we've been blended because of trade and so so I hope to be a part of a momentum to kind of eliminate some of that, because there's an energy in the world that seems to divide, and I want the Alma Film Festival to be something that can bring it together, because there's so much beauty in the world that we just don't know about. The gentleman from Papua New Guinea was going to be on the call, but he had an emergency. One of his pipes burst. He was going to be on this call, but he's saying in Papua New Guinea, there's 1,000 different languages.
Wow.
And so that could be 1,000 different sets of stories and mythology that many of us know very little about. Nigeria is 50 different cultures of people, and on and on. So what are we missing as humanity for not hearing about the evolution and the human journeys from, more of the world? So that's what the Alma Film Festival is about, being that we have a dynamic connection to Atlanta, which has a very dynamic production ecosystem. We want to build a bridge from Atlanta to the Dominican Republic, and from the Dominican Republic to the rest of the world, and over-indexing on the global South, because if I'm in Fiji, maybe it'd be difficult to get into Sundance or South by Southwest or Toronto because they're so competitive. So we want to give those filmmakers the priority in this festival. That, you know, we want to position ourselves to be one of the key festivals in the world to understand and see what's happening in the global South. There's so much rich experience of humanity that we're not familiar with, and you'll hear that from some of the gentlemen and ladies that we have on this. That's what that film festival is about. I think there's a great way to add to the global cultural conversation with the great stories and the humanity that's coming from the global South.
All right. Yes, I think one thing that I think can be helpful is to hear from all the different people and what they're bringing. Because Anthony, then I can follow back up with you for us to just like get a lot of the other pieces. All right. So, okay, is the drunken monk? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's just the that's just I'm sorry, I'm still recovering from that. Thank you, Anthony.
Okay.
I'll just take the ball and run with it. Okay, cool. Yeah, hi, my name is Kurt Wright. I'm a writer director from Kingston, Jamaica, based in Kingston, Jamaica.
Awesome.
Sorry, voice is a little off. I was on set yesterday on a music video set, just cane piece, just bush and mosquitoes and dust everywhere. So I'm a little bit in recovery mode right now. But yeah, you know, the Jamaican filmmaking ecosystem, we have a lot of very hardworking people out here, but I always joke with you know, fellow filmmakers that we're all sort of closet closet filmmakers, as opposed to, you know, our ecosystem is filled with commercial work and music videos and that sort of thing. And I think everybody has a feature film or a short film or a short film they hope to turn into a feature film in their back pocket. And so as a result, you know, when the opportunity comes in order to do your own thing, everyone sort of jumps at the chance. And what myself and my partner Noel, who's also a part of the Alma Festival, have found is that whenever I mean, our experience has been, I like to think that my ideas are pretty original, and whenever we have something doing,
Yeah.
we find that it's quite easy to get crew to come on board, even if it's just as on a volunteer thing, just to kind of be like, we just want to be a part of this. We just want to tell a story that's different and meaningful, especially if it's relevant to the culture and it's not some sort of traditional, you know, standard fare. So yeah, it's been really cool, and we're looking forward to being able to showcase one of our pieces called Origins. It's a proof of concept pilot for a story based in Jamaica, but it's a big time traveling adventure full of like magic and, you know, monsters and, you know, a bunch of characters who are very integral to our history and our mythology. So, you know, the story takes place, just in a nutshell, it travels straight through from like slavery days until even the modern time. You don't get to see that well, you kind of do in the full blown in the pilot, but the idea was supposed to be that if we get to do this as a TV series, then each episode gets to take place in a different time in Jamaica's history, but a time that's also very relevant. So do we get to see like the birth of things like mento and ska music, not just reggae and dancehall that everybody's already somewhat familiar with, but even, you know, like the birth of ska and that kind of stuff, and revisiting certain relevant points in Jamaica's history, you know? So it gets to be a little bit of a learning experience without being in your face about the fact that this is also a learning experience. You're still watching a really cool TV show at the end of the day, and, you know, following the heroes and characters.
How did you get involved with Alma? How did that connection come about?
Oh, this guy named Anthony Page reached out to me on Instagram one day, and I was like, who the heck is this? And we started talking. Basically, it was just that. Like, Anthony reached out to me. I think it's the same with a lot of the other fellows. I'm sure Melly can speak to his experience. But yeah, we met just through, you know, the magic of Instagram. And we started talking. That was a little over a year now, actually. And yeah, we've kind of just been in touch and just kind of back and forth, and the whole fellowship thing has been pretty cool. You know, like we meet up relatively often. We've gotten to meet other people from across the globe. And I think it's cool because I feel like little collaborations are coming out of that. And, you know, it's people from Jamaica and Fiji and South Africa and, you know, all kinds of stuff. So it's been a nice experience.
Awesome. I can speak to that. I met Anthony probably about, oh my gosh, 15 years. It's been a while, a long time ago. when we both lived in the same city in Georgia, in the Augusta, Georgia area. And he was always making connections. He was always about togetherness and like bringing people together, and putting on these plays and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, who is this multi-talented person? So I'm glad you got to experience Anthony also. Maybe I should toss it to Melly. Is it Melly?
Yeah, Melly.
I dodge. I don't want to take it.
It's your turn. You have no choice. Same question though. Could you tell me sort of how you got involved, and then tell me what you're bringing to the festival?
Sure. So I'm Melly. I'm a filmmaker living here in Fiji, in the South Pacific. And when Anthony initially emailed me, I was actually like, what's going on? Is this a scam? Should I file this under? Because it was just an out of the blue, hey, I want to make contact with you. And I was totally not prepared for it. And then I thought, okay, let's just do a call to see how it goes. And turns out, of course, it was legit. But initially, I was very hesitant. I was like, I'm just a
kind of skeptical,
filmmaker.
Right?
Yeah, I'm just a filmmaker all the way in Fiji. This guy from Atlanta, the US, reaching out to me, so it was quite a eye opener for me when we started talking. But yeah, so he reached out to me because I'm as a filmmaker here in Fiji, I've made a few animated short films because I'm an animator. Well, I'm an animator by day, filmmaker by night, and sometimes filmmaker by day. So he reached out to me because he saw my film Solimbula, which is an animated film about an alternate version of Fiji where westernization didn't really impact westernization and colonization didn't impact Fiji too much, and we still held onto a lot of our culture and traditions. So he found that intriguing, that kind of setup. And we got to talking, and he invited me to be part of the film festival as well as the film fellowship, which is what we're all part of. And I've been really appreciative to being invited on this journey because I've been able to meet a whole lot of other people around the world who are brown like me, which is a very exhilarating opportunity because aside from the Pacific, like outside of the Pacific, in terms of these filmmaker circles, there's a whole lot of I don't get to see a whole lot of brown people. So by being part of this fellowship, being part of these calls, and meeting and networking with other how I say melanin cousins, it's been really helpful and fruitful, and like the few times that I've been in calls with and I've been to one big fancy glitzy film festival, which is the Berlinale, as a tourist. I just went there on a German embassy, sort of like, hey, we're taking this brown Fijian filmmaker from Fiji to the Berlinale. What I saw was there's a lot of great stuff there, but I was just happy to come back to the Pacific, and it was a bit much for me. So being part of this fellowship and being part of and getting to just talk and network with other people along the same along similar tropical lines, almost climate lines, has been something of a real comfort to me as a Fijian filmmaker. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, Katrine, let's hear from you.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm in the middle of a blackout here, so I have about 10%. So if I disappear, it's because my phone died, but I'll try and make it quick. Yeah, so I contacted Anthony because I saw the Alma Film Festival was coming here, and I'm really excited to have them all here and be a part of everything. So we were discussing making a tour for the participants when they come here. So we've come up with a really interesting tour to take participants around the town of Las Terrenas. And we're going to be talking to local entrepreneurs who have their own businesses artists, dancers, musicians, people who work with the traditional food. So everything is just talking and walking around and really feeling a part of the community and actually talking to the people from the community. So
Okay.
we've come up with this, partnered with Caribe Nómada, which is a local tour agency focused on sustainable and ethical tourism. So it's going to be something really exciting and really cool for people when they're here.
So I think that's Anthony, I think that speaks to, for me, it speaks to community instead of
Yes,
just,
absolutely.
right? Like being able to have somebody with a local perspective to offer additional things in addition to the films I'll be seeing. Like there will be times there's time to do other things. That sounds like like an important piece of this. I hear pieces, and as I'm reading about it, a lot of this being about community. Because sometimes when you think about a film festival, everything's so out of reach and out of touch, but this feels like some togetherness. Okay.
Yes.
Hi,
Yes,
Ohima. Welcome.
so yes, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me where you are right now, how you got involved, and
Um,
talk to me a bit about what you'll be doing.
okay, well, currently I am in the Gambia, but I am from Augusta, Georgia.
Oh,
So
okay. I know Augusta.
from yeah, I'm born and raised from there. So me and Anthony go way back. He was my acting coach when I was like 11. I was a
Oh,
kid.
cool.
I was a pickin', you know. So I've been connected through Blue Bistro Theater ever since I was a kid. And fast forward to now, I am an executive admin for Anthony for the festival. And I'm just excited to be here. I'm not a part of the cool group of the fellows, but I'm just assisting in every part, every way that I can, as far as like the newsletter, the Mosaic Cinema Journal, and just a helping hand. And I'm happy to be here.
Okay. Can you tell me about what some of the things that I'll be asking Anthony as well, but like talk to me about the fellowship and also the festival itself. What's it been like from conception to like where you are now? Because it was an idea and it's like 2 weeks away, like it's almost here. So can you talk to me about that?
Right. So I've been more so on the back end.
Yeah.
So from what I could say, the journey has been amazing. The fellowship is a lot. It's a lot of them. It is so many, and all of these people have a lot of different gifts and a lot of different talents. And one thing I could say, I enjoy that everyone is like in different parts of the world and
Yeah.
us all coming together to create
Hmm.
like something so like mind blowing because for me, it has never been done before.
Okay.
So I don't know, like
Yeah, y'all are
people of
pioneers
color.
with this. This is
Yeah. So,
the pioneer.
like I said, I'm on the back end, like kind of like looking in and just watching and also learning as I go. And I'm amazed. I'm just amazed at all of the talent is like I can never like do what you guys do, but it's really amazing. As far as the festival, it is coming very, very soon.
Hmm.
Um, like I won't be able to make it, but I know it's a lot of things going on as far as Anthony has a lot as far as getting the logistics and things together, but it's coming together
Okay.
bit by bit. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's coming
And I could
together.
possibly chime in there. So, but Ohima, what's really important with her, she is a touch point for that part of Africa because she's been opening a lot of doors about what's going on. She went there kind of on a sabbatical and fell in love with it and decided to stay. So she's been living there with her daughter, and she said it's a very different reality. And she just fell in love with Western Africa, living in the Gambia. Um,
Okay.
and I think it's a metaphor for what's happening. There seems to be an awakening, and Africa is like the biggest part of that global awakening. But we're also seeing it in the South Pacific. We're seeing it in the Caribbean. We're seeing it in the Central and South America, Southeast Asia. What I call it is it's a renaissance of reclamation. unfortunately, colonialism has had an effect on so many people around the world. But I think there's
True.
individual cultures of people that are reclaiming. Like, I think Melly tells a really interesting story that when the Christian missionaries came in, they destroyed a lot of the kind of history of Fijians because they said they were idols, and Christianity, we don't want to worship idols. And even though maybe many Fijians still kind of hold to a Christian faith, they're beginning to reclaim some of that was lost. And again,
Okay.
with Kurt, we got a very narrow view of what authentic Jamaican culture is about. And so he hopes through his work to kind of expand that. So we get a more authentic, a more accurate, and a more complete view of Jamaica. And we're seeing that in Cameroon. We're seeing that in South Africa. We're seeing that in Lesotho. We're seeing that in Brazil, and on and on. So that's what I mean by, expanding the global cultural conversation, because most of us know more about medieval Europe than we know about medieval, say, Jamaica or medieval.
That's right. Absolutely.
Canada.
Yeah. Anthony, was this the vision that you had, what's happening right now? Like, did you have this vision? Has it changed and shifted from like whatever you saw in your head at the beginning?
Well, I'll be candid with you. I didn't want to do it. I was doing some multimedia work for this real estate group. They bought 2,000 acres and they're building a beautiful resort down there in the northwest part of the Dominican Republic. And, I was down there, of course, getting video and doing the graphics and creating step-in repeats and brochures and pamphlets and all of that, the complete multimedia package. They said, hey, we're going to be doing events every year, music and other things. And they said, we want to do a film festival. Can you help us put it together? I'm like, that's not my lane. I want $1 million check so I can go direct a film. But after a period of time, we kept having the conversations. I said, well, if you do it, take this approach. And I thought about all of the things that I saw were missing. And those are the things that I brought into the Alma, because there's 12,000 film festivals. Those who attend film festivals have 12,000 really dynamic options. So I was trying to create something new. I was like, oh, here's a small gap that maybe we could fill. And that's what Alma's about. Okay. So talk a little bit about how it's different from other film festivals. Well, we're research centered because, when I went to film school, it was like, a lot of great European men did this in film history. And then, there was Spike Lee and Oscar Micheaux. They didn't give us a full kaleidoscope of who contributed to the evolution of this media. And it was just like Black history, it was like Black people in the United States were enslaved. And then there was Martin Luther King. So there were gaps in our understanding of how we got here. Right. Yeah. So by taking a scholarly approach, we can start to add, to the scholarly discourse around, Black and brown and tan cinema around the world. Really looking at it in terms of essays, editorials, and articles. And that's what Ohima was talking about with our journal, with our film journal. Also, most film festivals, they really focus on the industry. It's film people talking to film people. So we said, how do we build a better connection between filmmaker and audience? That's another piece. And then we see what technology is doing, which a lot of them are adapting to. But as technology evolves, we want to make sure that more voices are influenced in how that evolves. So we're not left out of that. And you have this advanced technology and we have no input. So those are the few things that we think are distinct. And like I mentioned earlier with Katrine, experiences. We want to create a safe environment. Say if a Denzel were to show up, and the lady who's setting up the room, or the gentleman who's taking the tickets, we want to treat them all equally. Right. Yes, we want to give Denzel his honor, but I've been to film festivals where my film was an award-winning film, and I felt completely ignored and almost shuffled around, because I didn't have a certain type of celebrity status, and my film was screened there, and I won an award for that film, and felt irrelevant to the process. And it was like, wow, and I'm a part of their quote-unquote program. And they didn't create a value for me. So those are some of the things that we think about. So high level of concierge, high level of hospitality, really, quote unquote, leading with love. You know what I mean? Because, many of us, because of colonialism, have been traumatized. And I don't want to be a part of adding more of that into the world. So you said something about, like you didn't really want to do this. You were like, hey, give me $1 million to make my own film, which reminds me of Drunken Monk.
It's only because it's on my phone. It popped up like that. I don't typically go into Zoom meetings as drunken_monk. But no, Kurt. I'm Kurt.
Kurt. Him saying that, Anthony saying that reminds me of what you said at the beginning. Whether you're doing videos or whatever, you have this story, like you have this movie, you have this thing that you want to tell. And so everybody kind of, if you're a filmmaker, if you're I don't know, like who, like my in undergrad for me, I was communications major, but TV cinema
Yeah.
was my track. So I did a lot of audio editing and shooting shorts and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
everybody has that story they want to tell that's in them. I want to circle back to you because yours sounds like sci-fi. I don't know if would you say like the time travel component
I
kind
mean,
of.
the because of the fact that it's heavily based around the hero of the story is a character called Three Finger Jack, who is an actual character from Jamaica's history. He was a sort of a notorious roguish sort of thief.
Okay.
Um, and the whole idea is that another character from our past, Annie Palmer, who's known as the White Witch of Rose Hall, in our history, there's different iterations of the story, but in our history, she was essentially killed in a slave revolt because she was part of like owning a plantation. She had these husbands that she killed. She was rumored to have, bathed in their blood, all kinds of stuff in order to keep herself young. And our whole story sort of came from the idea of, well, what if she didn't die? What if
Mm,
she didn't die? What if she found a way to avoid her own death? How would Jamaica's history have been changed by that? And so essentially we have Three Finger Jack, who is from a different time in our history, who has been
okay.
pulled out of his own time in order to now,
Oh, I
you
see.
know, combat her, because Jamaica's history is being uprooted in the first place. So the entire idea is that that's the point of being able to jump around, and you get to meet all of these other characters in what turns into this chase across time in order to rectify what has been done,
Okay, so it's not
and
about time travel per se in some
I mean,
sci-fi
there's definitely
aspect.
there's time travel, but not from the point of view of Doc and Marty built a car. And you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
There's
Yes.
literally a magical character who is called the storyteller, who was played by the beautiful, wonderful Leonie Forbes, who has since passed on. But she was our equivalent of, man, she was our Eartha Kitt, man.
Mm,
She was Uhura. She was, you know what I mean? She was such a
yeah.
beautiful, beautiful person, like inside and out. Got to meet her years ago, and she just adopted me like very quickly, and I
How lucky
adopted
for
her.
you.
Yeah, she was an amazing human being. But yeah, so her character is essentially the one who has brought all of these people together. And there's more to the story. When people come to the festival and they get a chance to see the film, they'll be able to see it. But there's one character who's causing a problem. There's another character who comes along, makes it a bigger problem, and as a result, it turns into more than anyone, even the bad guy, expected it to be. And we now have
Mm,
this chase through time. So time travel, yes, that sci-fi aspect of it, yes, but at the same time, it's taken from a more magical point of view, because
okay.
magic is also a part of our culture, our history. People know about Obia, people know about voodoo is Haitian specific. I want to really, really clarify that, because
Okay.
people tend to mistake the two. So in Jamaica, we have Obia, which is it's similar, it's not the same. I don't want to speak as if I'm an expert on it, but it's not the same thing.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of references to our culture. And like I said, it's just a love letter to our culture, which the whole story for me is just a metaphor for our reality, because
Yeah.
I do believe that our culture is fading in this era of TikTok and Netflix. And
Mm,
at the end of the day, when I see all of these Korean dramas on TV, especially, calling out Netflix, I see all of these Korean dramas, and I'm down to watch them and turn on some subtitles and stuff, and that's fine. I don't speak Korean. But then when I hear that people have a problem understanding the Jamaican accent, which can turn up like this, or it can turn down, or it can turn, you know what I mean? Like, we all code switch, that's fine. But there's this sort of this idea, as Anthony said, this very narrow-minded perspective that if you don't sound like Bounty Killer or Buju Banton, then, like, you're not Jamaican enough, and or that we all sound like that. My accent changes
mm,
on a daily basis depending on who I am speaking to, and in the words of your own Louis Farrakhan, you adjust depending on the audience that you speak to. So that's basically it, and we just
yeah.
want our opportunity to
Right.
represent ourselves as well, tell our stories instead of having other people come down and tell their version of our stories, and
Right.
and approach it from a much more authentic point of view.
Okay. It's so funny. I feel like you were, by day, I'm an administrator at a school.
Mhm.
And I literally, in addition to being an administrator, I've been going back into the classrooms because I couldn't take being away from the classroom, but I feel like you were there with me. because I was talking about Dr. Carter G. Woodson and how many people don't know his story, which is a really great one. But he's the reason he started Negro History Week, which became Black History Month. But that was largely because two main reasons. When he was growing up, he knew all these Black people that had done these really awesome things, that had been inventors, that knew like all this medical information. He knew people who were in the military, had helped fight in the war, and they had to be chiefs, and they were strategizing to make sure that these plans happened. And so he knew all these great people, but he was like, but why aren't any of them in books? And then he makes it,
Right.
he goes to high school and college, and then grad, and then he teaches in French, and teaches him, he moves to France, learns French, becomes fluent, does all this teaching, learns all these more things about Black people in all these places. He comes back to the States, and he ends up teaching again, and then he went to Harvard to get a PhD. And while he's there, he's talking to his professor about why am I not seeing any people who look like me? And the professor just laughs in his face. This is an old white man who says, of course you don't, because Black people haven't done anything. Like, what have you contributed? And he was like, what? Excuse me? And so he names some things that he knows. But I was telling my students that, third, fourth, fifth graders, and then the middle school students, to remind them of how important it is to own your story. Because I was like, two things. For one, Dr. Carter G. Woodson felt like either the stories about Black people were that they were lazy, they were not smart, all these bad things, they were bad people, or there was no story at all. So what do you need to do, students, about yourself and people who look like you? You need to be in charge of your story. So hearing you say that makes me think a lot about that. And I hadn't thought about, I'm seeing K-pop all over the place, right? And I hadn't thought about how, like, hear you, like what you're saying about in Jamaica, there's stories to be told. And I definitely do hear people say, well, I can't understand. I don't know what they're saying. It's so hard to understand. And you're like, wait a minute, how come you can, understand these other languages or read the subtitles, but you're not interacting with us in that same way?
And don't get me wrong, I kind of love a K-pop thing nowadays. Like I don't know when I
Every
got
now and
into
then.
it. I don't know when I got into it, but Demon Hunters was kind of cool. But yeah, it's just about the fact that it's hard when you look around and you see all of these other people getting a chance to represent themselves authentically.
Right.
And then at the same time, it's either, with all due respect, an American or a British person, or you're just somebody who's just not from Jamaica on a whole.
Yeah.
Basically speaking your culture into being, and your language and your accent, and not doing a good job at the accent either. I will point that out many times. We do not sound like the guys from Cool Runnings, as much as I love that movie.
Yes.
But and there's many other examples of that that's very cringeworthy. And we really just want, my dream would be for like the Jamaican accents, because again, I live in Kingston.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily sound like somebody that lives in Negril or, whatever, that kind of thing. Like, it does get a little thicker the more you go into the country. And then, as I said, even myself, depending on where I am and where I'm working, I did not sound like this yesterday speaking to who I needed to speak to and XYZ. So, you adapt and you change. But that's something that's not very well known to people outside of Jamaica. So they assume that if you're coming down, you have to sound a specific way. If you're playing the role, you have to sound a specific way, which that accent borderlines on Irish sometimes, in all honesty. There's these weird similarities sometimes with certain words.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just, it doesn't have to be like, let us show you first, and then we can talk about, putting some variety on that. You know what I mean? But like, come to us and learn first, instead of assuming that this is who we are, what we sound like, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's basically
exactly
it.
Well, I also think two more things, and then I'm gonna hop over to you, Melly. You mentioned before, like, reggae. You mentioned parts of your story will be talking about these other kinds of music, and I swear it's either, for somebody who's not from Jamaica, the representation that's out there of Jamaica, right, is the one accent, right? You got to choose like which one that is that people feel like is Jamaican. The reggae music only, and not knowing about other kinds, and then typically hair, right? Locks. You know,
Well,
the expectation
we
that
get
there's going to
track
be
and
locks.
yes, definitely. But we also I have to insert track and field. I've had the pleasure of working with Usain Bolt quite a few times. And we are thoroughly enjoying just beating y'all on the track every Olympics. But anyway, that's a whole different
You'll
thing. I'm
accept
not
that
saying
one, okay?
I will take that one. But yeah, and I mean, hair is. I'm not obviously not really the person. I'm not a spokesperson for hair, but at the
But you
same
are
time, yeah,
somebody who is Jamaican who doesn't have the
yeah.
hair that you're supposed to have, right? Like this
Yeah,
air quotes
exactly,
supposed to.
exactly. And so at the same time, yeah, there's a lot of stereotypes, and then yet still our country's motto is out of many, one people. And myself, I have a lot of my family, as I've said to Anthony, and I make this joke all the time that my family is mostly black and Chinese, but yet I look like a Puerto Rican because God had a sense of humor. My my grandparents and their parents came over from China at some point in time, and then there's black on the other side. And I mean, any white people that I'm aware of in my family have been married in. I've never actually met. I'm not saying that there's no white anywhere at all. I have green
Right.
eyes, so I mean, clearly it came from somewhere. But at the same time, it's like I've never met them. Like that's
Okay.
generations and generations before me.
Okay.
So like I am the definition of mixed. My mother used to joke that Heinz ketchup. My mom used to say that when anyone asks you what you are, tell them that you're Heinz variety. Like that's
The 57
that's what you
flavors,
are.
right? The
Yeah,
57.
exactly, exactly. And I did a DNA thing recently. I was like, damn, I really am Heinz variety. Like that's
She was right.
she was absolutely right. Yeah, so that is basically the idea, as you said, it is to get out a bit more about that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, we are very proud of our culture. We're very proud of the things like reggae and the track and field. My father loves cricket to a frightening degree, even though I find it boring as sin. Like just our sports culture, our music culture, all of that stuff. We're very proud of it, but
Yeah.
it still doesn't change the fact that there's still so much more to Jamaica and still more about what makes us us that
Okay.
I think we are dying to show the world. And it's why I'm glad to see the variety. I'd like to think that Origin sparked something locally in the country as well, because ever since we did a short film first, and now we have the proof of concept pilot, which is what we'll be showing at the film festival. But
Okay.
ever since we did it, I can't help but notice that I see a lot of different stories coming out of Jamaica, and it's no longer just
Mm,
about like, oh, this dance hall artist that meets this little Christian girl from the country, and it's not the stereotypical things that it was before. Those are still happening because those are also traditional, but
right.
I am seeing a difference, and I'm very proud to have been a part of that.
Awesome. Awesome. I think too, what is making me excited from hearing you talk, and again, Anthony, from thinking about the festival in general, is the potential to bring all these people together. So when just the people in the room are together, there's going to be this mix of all these cultures and stories and languages and dialects and all these things to learn about all these different people and all all this brownness. Um, and when you watch the movies, thinking about Kurt, your stories of it just sounded like some really good writing. Like I heard like there's an antagonist, a protagonist,
Mhm.
like the story gets bigger and bigger and it's more unbelievable. So I'm like, okay, there's some really good writing. All these things are woven in there, all these things that there are to learn about all the different aspects of it, in addition to all the people that you'll meet as well. So that's all exciting, right? So now I'm gonna jump to Melly, thinking about the writing piece. You said that yours is animation, right? So what kinds of stories are you telling?
Well, I started out making animated short films because I do animation for work.
Okay.
But I think after my second animated short film, the one that I just described, Solimbula, when I was like, oh, my next animated short film, I want to do this, I realized that at least here in Fiji, we didn't have the technical expertise to bring it to life. So I kind of pivoted to live action
Okay.
because,
Oh, okay.
yeah, from animation to live action, there's a whole lot of videographers here. So we have a lot of skill sets in terms of live action video and that. So it's in terms of making films, it was a lot easier to get a live action film made than in animation. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what you're showing at the film festival is a live action? Is that?
All right. For the film festival, I'll be bringing a mixture of films.
Okay.
Some of them mine, and then some of them also from other filmmakers here in Fiji. I just
Cool.
wanted to showcase the sort of like the talent that we have here, even if we don't necessarily have the infrastructure of a film industry to support upcoming and existing filmmakers. But there's definitely a lot of talent, and so with regards to the festival, I'll be bringing my animated short film, the one that I just described called Solimbula, and then I'll be bringing. I just finished last year an a live action short film called translated from Fijian, it's called The Messenger, um, and takes place in the 1800s Fiji. So just before we had a Western contact. And I'll also be bringing a few films from other filmmakers. One of them is called Randini, which is about and I'm sure this theme kind of, carries weight with a lot of brown communities. It follows a pastor, a church pastor's wife, as she has to deal with all the stress and terrible things that go behind the scenes while trying to maintain a facade of like being in control as a pastor's wife in public.
First
Yeah,
lady. Do they call it the first
yeah.
lady? Yes.
Well, yeah, but and it's a horror. It's a horror shot, so of course
What?
it's
Whoa. Okay, I didn't see that twist.
yeah. So it definitely it's like when I read the script, I was like, man, this is like not only is it relevant in Fiji, but it's definitely relevant in a lot of other countries that have a strong Christian presence. Eh? The other film I'll be bringing is by this really young filmmaker. He's like 22, but he's already made a lot of short films with him and his uncle. And as I mentioned, with Fiji not having a local industry, so to speak, they just went out and made short films on their own because they could. And so
Okay.
they just grabbed the camera, grabbed a couple of
Nice.
cousins, and one weekend they'd make films. And so from that, he's made a recent film about two young boys who you know um, I don't know what's the term in English, but getting up to no good or while being idle, you know.
Okay.
And so I like the film because it really showed what the youth of Fiji sort of like how they think and what they're up to, sort of like from the next generation's point of view, so to speak. Yeah. So that's the other film that we're bringing. It's called Takoso, which means crossing in Fijian. Yeah.
Mm.
And so that's sort of what's on the plate of Fijian films.
So were you I don't know if you sought out when you sought out to make films and such, whether animated or live action, was it to fill a void at all? Was it to showcase like Fijian culture, or was it just like I'm interested in storytelling in this medium? Would you say?
I'm interested in storytelling in this medium.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's not that well, you know, having I think on my fifth, fourth, fifth short film, I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
reaching a stage in my early career where I'm like, okay, people locally, at least locally, are starting to sit up and take notice, and so I feel like a small sense of responsibility in terms of like the type of stories that I tell. But initially, it really was just because I had these animation skills and I wanted to make something cool, you know.
Okay.
And you're right I should say, and every time I say this fact, I always give a little asterisk. But I reckon I've made two animated short films from Fiji, and they're the first animated short films from Fiji made by a Fijian crew.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Oh, that's
don't
awesome.
know of any other animated short films from Fiji. And both of the films were made by an entirely Fijian crew. And the second animated film, the one that I'll be bringing, Solimbula, which FYI, it depicts a traditional practice of human sacrifice, animated. Um,
Okay.
yeah, And so that second film, we actually crowdfunded our budget. And we were successful, and we managed to, I was really proud of this. We managed to pay our crew something small, but at least we were able to crowdfund a budget and then pay our crew and then make a fully animated short film with a Fijian crew from Fiji.
Okay. This makes me think of all kinds of follow-up conversation questions. I'll keep it mostly about the festival now, but I have questions for you both about hearing you both talk about, like, Melly, you talking about having a crew. Kurt, you talked about people that you're working with. And I want to shelve this for now because I'm going to hand it over to Anthony to let him talk a bit. But I do wonder, I know people, I'm just thinking about way back when I was in undergrad and wanting to, and thinking about films and stuff like that. I found it hard, or I would meet people who were like a one-man show. And I wonder if you both were like a one-man show for a while. And because sometimes it's hard to find that team and to find that other people, unless you, I don't know, go into a mix or an area where there's a lot of other people that are doing film. But I know a lot of people who find it hard to find a crew, to find people that become your crew. So I want to talk about that at some point. But Anthony, I'll let you get back in here. Having heard from Kurt and heard from Melly and the things they said, is there anything that you'd like to chime in about as it pertains to the festival? Or
No, I think that, I mean, the spirit of what we want to do with the Alma Film Festival, I think they spoke about perfectly. There's just so much humanity that we, can be shared because, like I said, I loved Game of Thrones. It's probably one of my favorite series of all times. But it just made me wonder, it's like, what was medieval Brazil like? And then I see that trend, and I think there's an appetite for it in the world because we saw with Squid Game, there was nothing like it. You can compare it from Hollywood standards, and it was a global phenomenon. So I think there's a great appetite for it. So we just wanted to be a part of that conversation to kind of bring that forth because, again, I think, diversity is good business. I think diversity is good politics. I think diversity is good for society. Diversity is good for the cultural fabric of the world. So we just want to be a part of kind of pushing that essence more into the world,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I talk about too in my talks and presentings or speeches or whatever, especially when people call me in to talk about diversity for the non-melanated folks. I always say to them, like, you're not going to get excellence. There's no way, like, no two people have the same lived experience. They don't have the same background. So if you have a lot of very similar people making all the decisions, like, you're missing out on so many things. I love a good brainstorming session with like a whole lot of different kind of people, different income levels, different races, genders, like, because there's just going to be things that I can't possibly think of because it's not my lived experience. And so when you talk about like actual diversity and bringing in all this, the amount of talent and creativity that's going to be at this festival is like, it's like mind blowing to think about. So I think like what you have, like what you're creating, Anthony, is so important and so exciting and so original and so many things. Well, and Anthony too, that one man show thing that I talked about, I remember back when you were in Augusta and you were doing all those August Wilson plays. I'm sure you remember this. Like, I remember I know you had to feel like a one-man show on so many things. I mean, you had to get a cast. Like, there were so many parts to that, and you were doing play after play after play. But and then not just that. Like, I know you know what it means to be a one-man show, and I'm wondering, I feel like this festival is probably going to have people from people who are singularly doing a thing to people who have full teams and casts and all the things. Is that what we're in for? A range?
Yeah, that's the long-term goal. One of the things that's important to us is have an experience-based festival, because I know with all of the festivals that I've been through in my career, right? There may be 200-300 films. I may be lucky to see 2 to 3 films. All of our decisions are built on 6 what we call pillars of purpose. We start with conversation, which we hope will lead to deep and meaningful connections because we're listening, we're hearing each other. That's why we didn't over-program on film. So after film, we actually have time to sit down and talk about it and think about it, let it soak in.
Okay.
From those connections, we think we'll have a greater and deeper sense of community.
Yeah.
And I think organically out of that, you're going to start to see more collaboration across borders, across cultures, across generations, which will lead to cultural diplomacy and collective growth. Because when you
Okay.
know somebody, it's more difficult to other them. It's easy to other somebody you don't know, but I've gotten to know the nuance a little bit of Jamaican culture and Fijian culture, and it's interesting to me. And I see the parallels to me being from South Carolina in the United States,
Right. Yeah.
and so we want to model that, and hopefully the energy that we create will spread a little bit, around the world.
Yeah.
Ultimately leading to what we call a global cinematic agenda. So we
Okay.
know the needs of Fiji are very different than the needs of Jamaica, where their industries are, what their priorities are. So there may be 10,000 things that we can't agree on, but when we convene this group of people, what are the 1, 2, 3, 5 things that we can all agree on and start there,
Yeah.
right? So there's somewhat of a collective voice, and maybe, we do things better than they, and they do other things better than we, and then, we can help each other. It's like, oh, let us help you with this, and you guys can help us with that. And now we're both better because we're bringing the best things to the table for each other.
Okay.
And and maybe better is not a better word, different.
Okay.
Maybe better is not the
Yeah.
best word for that, but different. Because that's it too. We don't want to say that, because I realize that, like Melly kind of referenced, blackness in Jamaica is very different than blackness in Atlanta, which is very different than blackness in South Africa, and brownness in Dominican Republic is very different than brownness in Brazil or Fiji.
Right.
So because our skin tones are similar, we just can't assume that that person moves through the world the way we do. And again, so
Yes.
that goes
Yeah.
back to the beginning. That's why we have to have these conversations with each other. So what we put on that screen is important, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of aspects of humanity that we just don't get to see, and those people maybe don't get that kind of validation, because all of us are not, this narrow, iconic hero, person, 6 foot tall and square jaw and like Kurt, you know what I mean? So, but so that's, I mean, to me, I think there's 8 billion versions of humanity, and they're all beautiful and unique and dynamic, and that's what I want to embrace through the Alma Film Festival.
Okay. Okay. So I think, the Alma Film Festival is going to be all this storytelling. Kurt brought it up earlier, which made me think about, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And I feel like it's because of him that Black History Month exists. I don't think it's a coincidence that this all worked out to have tomorrow's the last day of Black History Month. I love that I'm talking to people about telling your own story, which is what Carter G. Woodson would have wanted, which is what this month is all about in Black History Month. And I want to wrap with letting each of you kind of tell something about maybe something that you're working on, but where people can find you and see some of your work, so they can get a sneak peek of like who's going to be at the festival. I'll start with Melly, if that's okay. If you want to share some information about like your acts or whatever, like where people can find you and see some of your work, so they can know who's going to be there.
Sure. I've always wanted to do this. Like and subscribe. No, not really. I have a website, you can which has links to all my social media platforms. So my website's my surname, so it's tuqota.com, Tungota.
Okay.
And so that's sort of where I have some of my films, some of my animation work, and has links to the rest of my social media, which is I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. TikTok recently. And I
Okay.
also have a newsletter, which is very fun to write because it stresses me out, because I need to focus on actually sending it out on time, which I rarely do. But
Same problem.
at least I
I have
try.
a
At least I try.
Awesome. Okay. And then Kurt.
All right. Well, see, this is where Drunken Monk actually becomes relevant. I mean, mostly the easiest way to find me is on Instagram. I am Drunken Monk. That's one word. Drunken Monk _JA, as in Jamaica. And then also, I mean, for other work, I'm on Vimeo. So if you go to vimeo.com and you put like, slash Kurtwright, KurtWright, that will lead you to a lot of stuff that I've done, which is also along the lines of corporate stuff, music video. It's not just the short film stuff.
Okay.
It's just work in general. Like I said, we're all closet filmmakers, so it is what
There
it
you
is.
go.
Yeah, but it's stuff that we're proud of, so yeah.
Okay. Melanie and Kurt, one more quick thing too before we go. Is there something in particular that you're hoping to get from this experience of participating in and being at this film festival? Either one of you can start.
Um, I know that for me personally, a big part of it is even just going to Dom Rep because I've never been there. I travel whenever I can. My wife and I, again, Noelle, who's also my partner, I'm the writer director. She's a producer actress. But we try to travel as much as possible. And, I guess along the lines of this festival, it's about going to Dom Rep and experiencing that culture, experiencing a culture that I've never been exposed to, even though this is a Caribbean neighbor. So I mean, just that alone, Anthony kept making this joke about how, oh, there's going to be like a beach party here and a beach party. Oh, you guys already got like beaches, and say, yeah, but it's not the same beach, so it's, as long as it's a different beach, I'm good. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to just meeting people and just kind of just, making those sort of socializing contacts and getting the work out there, allowing people to. My favorite part of showcasing my work is usually just sitting back in a quiet, dark space and watching the reactions to it. So, yeah, anytime that I get to do that is a pleasure, and I'm glad that we've been given a platform to showcase and speak about the work. So, yeah, because I really, really love what I do.
Awesome. All right, Melanie?
I think for me, I'm interested in actually meeting other Black and Brown filmmakers, and sort of like comparing and sharing experiences, as sort of like, especially in the countries that are similar to mine in terms of not having that much of a developed film industry.
Okay.
I'm curious to perhaps learn from them how they do their own thing in their country without much support, and at the same time also maybe like, hey, if you want, we can stay in contact or offer help across the ocean. Thanks to the internet, we can help out however we want. So it's all about just meeting and getting to know other filmmakers, and also offering support back and forth. Yeah, and also I heard the ramen there is nice, so I'd like to give it a shot. Literally
Melly
and
and me are going to
figuratively.
get along just fine.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible drinker, but I love sampling different types of alcohol. So
Okay.
There you go. All right. So Anthony, tell us, give us the listeners, the viewers, some information on how to find out more information about the festival, and any tips and things that you want to share about it, things you're looking forward to, the encouraging words for people who should come, and any way they can get more information on this.
Yeah, website, www.almafilmfestival.com, and that's spelled ALMA. And Alma is a Spanish word that means soul, because that's what we want to connect to, the soul of humanity.
Yes.
And, we keep that website updated so people can kind of, constantly kind of see where we're at, schedules and background information on all of the things that we're going to be doing. We're also at Alma Film Festival on social media. You can get us on Instagram. We're at LinkedIn. We're on we were on Facebook, but I got slammed off for some reason. I think we got hacked, and all of our pages disappeared. So we're dealing with Facebook on that. But we should be back up soon, because I mean we didn't do anything to violate that we could tell. So
Okay.
but overall, it's March 17th to the 22nd, 2026. So that's in, like you said, less than 3 weeks. We're very excited. It's going to be a really dynamic, intimate kind of boutique couture festival experience. And what we hope for more than anything else is that people have relationships that outlive their festival experience, that people are really connecting. And And we hope to do a lot to kind of facilitate that, you know, again, by not showing too many movies and having more social time for people to kind of sit with each other and talk and hear and listen. Um, because with the films, and I'll say this one quick example, there's a woman in Switzerland. She's biracial. Her mother is a Swiss and German, and her father's from the Congo, right? And in Swiss society, there was really no expression for her as a Black woman as she was considered, even though she's biracial or multiracial. Then she goes to the Congo to visit her father's people, and they consider her, you know, a white woman. So she's like, where do I fit in the world? So she did a film discussing about what it means to be Black in Switzerland, talking to a variety of women all over the country, and it was very compelling. And I was like, wow, which
Yeah.
gave us an idea. So we curated her film for the festival. We're going to show that. And because there's so much diversity we anticipate being in the room, now we can hear from those other women in the room. So we've heard her perspective for what it means to be Black in Switzerland, but what does that look like in Jamaica? What does that look like in Fiji? What does that look like in the Dominican Republic? So now we get this nuance of what that means in different parts of the world. And we want to record those conversations. You know, that's what we mean by engagement. So now I'm sitting in the room and I'm hearing this Jamaican woman, or I'm hearing, you know, this American woman, or I'm hearing this woman from Panama. And I think that moves us toward connection and community better. So that's what we mean by higher level of engagement. We're not going to be talking about lenses and production models and that kind of stuff. We want to focus on things that the entire audience can really engage with. You know, the substance of humanity. Yeah, the substance of humanity and our experience as humanity. So yeah, we're very excited. It will be an annual festival. It's twofold. Because we do have a technology component of the festival that's going to happen every year in September in Atlanta. So we're in March in the Dominican Republic. We're in September in Atlanta. And we've been fortunate because two last things.
Yeah.
By grace, I know, you know, we worked hard as an internal committee to get to this point, but we've been able to build a coalition of more than 140 people that are contributing as stakeholders in 52 cities around the world in 35 countries. That answer calls and emails and that support us with small little things and some with larger things, and they've stayed engaged throughout the process. And that's telling for us, you know, because like Melly and Kurt said, we've never met face to face, but we've been engaging with each other over this period of a year, and they have become to understand each other a little bit. So and so we hope that can be a model for others. And we're fortunate with one last thing, you know, you being a Harvard grad as well, Dr. Cornel West is allowing us to name an award after him, you know, talking about social justice. So one of our most prestigious awards is the Dr. Cornel West Award. So we're very excited about that. You know, as one of the foremost, one of the most foremost intellectuals in the United States.
Right.
He believed in what we are doing enough to add his name to it to help amplify what we're doing. So definitely want to thank him for that, and so many others. You know, Miss Diana Grissett has been one of our biggest supporters. She's a cornerstone supporter from the beginning. So and everybody, I don't want to start mentioning his names because like I said, there's 140 of them, and it's a lot of people to thank, and nobody's taken for granted. Everybody a part of this process is important. So, and thank you today for having us. And Katrine had to leave because they had a power issue there, so her phone went dead. And in the Gambia, it's like almost 2:00 in the morning. So I think she's like, I gotta go. I'm wiped out. So she jumped off. So we didn't get to hear more from Ohima and Katrine, but next time.
Understood. Maybe. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Thank y'all too thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for answering Anthony's call. Thank you both were like, wait, is this really real, and is this really happening? I feel like, you know, in my time living on this earth, like you don't know, there's so many people who are, I don't know, just out to get stuff or self-seeking. And I found Anthony to just be super genuine. That's one thing that we like know about each other. Like, what about the people and what about humanity? And like, now how do we create something? So I'm so excited that he has created this. And I'm glad that y'all are a part of it. And I thank you for being on the show. And I'm just excited for it. Like, again, it's only a few weeks away. got to get your bags packed and all of that to head on over
And
down.
they're not making it easy. That's another thing, because Melly has to fly through the United States to get to the Dominican Republic. And then, our current administration is making it very difficult for people in the global South to come through the United States. It's one of those challenges. It's insane.
Right.
So, yeah.
There's that to think about. That's
we're
an
going to
extra
work
added
it out.
piece.
He may have to fly around the world twice to get to the Dominican Republic or something. I don't know.
All the best to you. Good luck. Good luck to you. Well, thank you all so much. Again, good luck. Good luck to you, Anthony, on this festival. I'm so glad for everybody to learn, to get to know more about it. This website is so beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm glad. I love looking at the way it looks and the black background and all the things. I really believe that people are going to get a whole lot from you and what you both are contributing. So
can I say one thing to that?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
there will be opportunities for a wider audience to see it if the filmmakers are interested, because there's about 5 independent streamers that are interested in featuring some of their work at different points. So if they approve, keep in touch with us through the website and our social media. We'll be making some announcements, like Signify TV, Equale TV, Belize Global Media. Have niche audiences in different parts of the world, and they've been approaching me about featuring some of the work that we curated for the festival. So
how about that?
If we get the approval of the filmmakers, their work will be available. And they're really great films. Very excited about the audience seeing them. There's just, the final thing kind of connected to that is, with the fellowship, we wanted to do an anthology series similar to, say, Black Mirror, where we're looking at different stories coming from all over the global South. We're going to be moving full steam ahead with that right after the festival, where every episode is going to be a different country in the global South telling a very unique story. And Kurt's script is brilliant already. Melly's got one called The Black Tapas, where this is a horror. It's just beautiful stories. So we're going to put those together, and hopefully within 18 to 24 months, man, we can bring that to market. But yeah, it was too much for me to bite off during the festival with all the logistics. So as soon as the festival's over and I can breathe, we're going to really, really go hard on that. So hopefully the world will hear more from these great filmmakers.
Yes, hopefully. That is too much to bite off at a festival. So yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully the world does hear more from you. All the best of luck to you. And we're gonna wrap with that. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us,
Have a good
Samantha.
night, everybody.
All right. Take care.